Hello. Welcome to another program of Steps Beyond Time. My name is Darrell Robert Schoon, and I'm here with the extraordinary founder of the Temple of Universality, Reverend Betty Tatalajski. And because I know what she's going to talk about, I thought it incumbent upon me to sort of frame today's subject in a very oblique way. This morning, and for you who are going to watch this program later, might remember what this phenomenon is. It's on the internet. And in fact, this morning, this person, a friend of ours, came over and she showed us something on her little iPhone, and it was a dress. And she said, "What is the color of this dress?" And I said, "Blue and black." And she says, "Yeah, but some people, it looks like gold and white." And I looked at it, it was blue and black. All right? But she said, "No, some people see it as blue, as gold and white." Yeah, okay. So I go in there and I do my website for the my morning news, because every morning on my website, Moving Through the Maelstrom, I do all the morning news, the economic stuff, basically. All right, and I come across this thing of this dress that some people see. It's on the internet. In fact, it said the picture that's breaking the internet. There's so much traffic going to the site that it's slowing things down. All right, because it's a phenomenon. In fact, I read the story. It happened in UK. This lady was buying a dress for a wedding, and she bought it, and then her friend, and she told her friend she bought the dress, and the color is black, is blue and black, or like little strands. And her friend goes, "No, it's gold and white." And she goes, "What?" Because it's real off. All right. So somehow it got on the web, and they said, "Does this color blue and black, or gold and white?" And around 75% said one way, 25% the other way. So it was like a phenomenon. They asked their friends. All right.
Yeah.
Now, why I'm telling this story about your story, it proves that we live in different universes. All right.
That's right.
It proves it. All right. And what is true in my universe may not be true in your universe. All right. Now, when I ran into Reverend Betty Tatalajski a few years ago, she told me a story that was so outrageous, and it was only the first of many. And I remembered later that my response was essentially this, the same response I had in 1971 when I read Autobiography of a Yogi, the story of Paramahansa Yogananda. I had never read a story of a yogi, like that. He told things in his story that were so outrageous that at the end of the book, I came to the conclusion Yogananda was either telling the truth or he was lying. That's all it. There was no middle ground. And in the way, the dress that's on the internet this morning is either blue and black or gold and white, or you're in different universes. And that's how I'm going to preface the story. See, Reverend Betty Tatalajski told me what she was going to talk about, and I thought, whoops, I'm going to have to frame this so people can deal with this.
Really?
Because even this story is so outrageous, it even blew her mind.
Yes.
And so she rarely talks about it. I was with her when it was because it happened over around a week. Till you got the message, you saw it.
You heard the story the next day.
The next day. But it took for around a week for it to settle in with her.
Yes.
And she told me
absolutely.
She's going to tell about this story today on the program. Here we go, folks. Reverend Betty Tatalajski, former Marine, former Southern Baptist, former Catholic, and now minister, founder of the Temple of Universality.
Hello, friends. Namaste. The God in me greets the God in you. And yes, that's just about what happened. But I want to talk about some red lights. Now, when we think of red lights, it's like I'm going to pay a fine because I ran.
2 days ago, I was there.
Okay, well, a month ago I was there. It was $325.
Same ticket.
And you know what, honey? I know I didn't run no red light if I were conscious, okay?
Okay.
So anyway,
all right.
But I'm going to talk about red lights. And March the 23rd, 2013. So you can see here that I was reluctant to talk about this, what happened to me.
This is 2 years later.
Yeah. After 2 years, because I told my friends the next day, actually, and well, it wasn't a matter of belief or disbelief. They know that I don't lie, but it was incomprehensible.
Betty, what happened to you? Now, I want to tell you, things happen to this lady that don't happen to the rest of us, all right? And if they do, certainly not in the same measure, all right? The ascended masters have talked to her. She has been led. Her life is a story of remarkable ideas. When this happened to Betty, she was worried about the screws in her head.
Absolutely.
And I could tell it. I could tell it. It affected her. And this is a person where this kind of stuff is not normal, but it happens.
All the
Yes.
all the time. And so this is almost the 100th show we've done.
Yeah.
And they've always been experiences that I have around the world. But this was right here in Tucson at the end of my, at the driveway of where my car was parked. At 5:55 that Wednesday morning, my phone rang and there was a message on it. Well, first of all, friends, my message machine had been broken for 2 months and nobody had fixed it. So I went in there and there was someone on the phone. There was my neighbor on the phone telling me, Betty, do you know what those red lights are about outside? Well, I put my bathrobe on. I was barefooted. I went out and I looked for John and I looked for red lights.
Now, this is the afternoon, isn't it, Betty?
It was morning.
Oh, morning, 5 in the morning. Okay.
5 o'clock in the
Okay,
morning.
okay.
So I didn't find John. I knocked
Yeah.
on his door. It was pitch dark out there.
Okay.
It was March. It was cold. And there were no red lights.
Okay.
Okay. And he knew also, when I approached him later, he says, I knew your phone message machines hasn't worked for 2 months.
Yeah.
But here's a message from him. What are the lights? And my machine, after that message, didn't work anymore, but it worked during those few minutes. So I go outside and I'm looking for John and I'm looking for red lights. There's nothing. It's pitch dark out there and it's cold and I'm barefoot.
Yeah, back in the house.
I just walk out to my car because I thought, you know, if
maybe it's you can't see it from where you are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And he thought later,
Yeah.
he told me that the police were there and an ambulance was there and there was the red lights out in the driveway, okay?
Okay, later.
But they weren't.
They weren't there.
No.
And
No.
folks, I know what her looks like. Betty's, the distance from her apartment to the parking lot is probably around 200 feet, 250
Yes.
feet. All right.
Yes.
So you couldn't see any red lights. It was dark.
No.
And you decided, well,
dark.
maybe I'll go out into the parking lot and look around
So I
to see these
did.
lights.
I
Okay.
did.
All right.
And they were not there.
You couldn't
so,
see,
But
okay.
I looked up.
Yeah.
And I'm right across the street from the St. Mary's Hospital.
Yeah, big hospital right
and
across the
this
street. Yeah.
was the parking lot. They built the parking lot
Yeah.
last year. And I could see over the parking lot, and there were these 3 huge lights. They were larger than any full moon I have ever seen.
Okay.
And they were bright lights.
Okay.
They were not shining.
Okay.
They were just red lights. Okay.
Okay.
And I thought, what is the hospital doing? What is this?
I just thought of something to say to our folks out here. In case you don't believe this story is being told by a person who did not see the red lights that the police said were on when she went through the stop sign.
So there they were, and I thought, what have they done over the parking lot
Of the hospital.
of the hospital?
Yeah. Why are those lights up there?
Why are they up there?
Yeah.
Now, if you go by there at night, you will see red lights in the parking lot and all on poles. Okay.
But these were huge.
These were huge.
Okay.
Like this, and they were up over the parking lot.
Okay.
Well, I was dumbfounded, of course, but I look over the hospital, which is higher, and there are 3 over the hospital. I look down to my right, and there are 3 over what would be Safeway grocery store across the street.
9 red lights now.
So we've got 9.
9, okay.
I look behind me, and there are 3 over to my house.
12.
So I knew that I had lost my mind.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I just stood there, And I'm wondering, people are going early to work.
They're going to see. What are they going to do?
Okay, they're going to have an accident, you know, trying to figure out the lights.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nobody stopped, okay? So I go in, after a while, I am so dumbfounded. I go back in the house and I says, I'm not awake. So, okay, so I'm waking myself up. And I go back out and they're still there.
Okay.
This happened 3 times within that 30 minutes, okay? Finally, I look at my house and I say, okay, there's not any over my house. I could see them, but this is not possible. So here I am, and I stood out there and watched them for at least another 30 minutes, and I am feeling like, well, I have lost my mind. Because if they were truly there, cars would be stopping.
People, everybody, it'd be like the Orson Welles movie.
Absolutely.
Where everybody's pointing and talking. And
absolutely. But it never happened.
Okay.
So I went in finally, and I thought, what has happened to my mind, you know? And so...
You know, I know, Betty, because when you told us the next day, I could tell you were worried about yourself.
Oh, I was worried about me.
You worried about yourself.
So it was, the next night was our Holy Grail circle.
Yeah, that's when we talked to you.
And Spirit says, tell the people. Well, I did. Well, there was
we were there.
She
was nervous.
Sound. There was not a sound in that circle, okay? Nobody was given a purpose for it, a reason for it, or any confirmation that I hadn't lost my mind.
Or say, you know, I saw those too. No one said that.
No
one said they were coming back and they wondered what they were. Nobody said anything.
No conjecture, maybe it's this and maybe that. It was like zip lips. Let her hang out there by herself, okay? She saw him. We don't believe it. So,
but
anyway. So that's how I felt on Thursday night.
We could feel it, Betty.
So the next day, as I had been doing for several years, I went to David Miller's United Fellowship Church for the meditation and for the healing, okay? So I asked Daryl and Martha if they could go to lunch with me.
That's what you told
So
us.
we go to lunch. And I told them what happened. Well, since it didn't happen to them, they said, well, tonight is our trance circle, what you would call a seance, by one of the best mediums in the country, who is Reverend Chris Fassetti. And she does this every other Friday night. And so they say to me,
you can find out.
Why don't you ask? Well, it wasn't them that was going to be crucified and hung out there, you know. And so you can imagine that I had heartburn over this, okay? Have I lost my mind, or does it have any credibility? So they, well, just ask. I said, well, why don't you ask? You know, well, it happened to you said, okay? So I go, and I thought, I didn't know.
Some of the conversations they have at this little village inn where we're eating are just not usual.
And so I thought, if I could just get up the nerve to do it. And Spirit has always tells me, now remember, Betty, you are responsible to the exact degree of your awareness, okay? And that's how I've been living all of these many years, okay? And that's why some of these shows seem rather audacious, you know? So, okay, I'm just trying to get up nerve. And I am the first person in that circle, because I sit by Reverend Christine Fassetti as a protector, and so that nobody touches her. So she goes into, well, Betty never asked any, you know. And I said, I do have a question.
This time,
This time I have a question. I want to know, and Lord Sananda, one of the Ashtar commanders, comes in right away with a couple of other Ashtar commanders, and they were laughing. They were laughing. And I said, well, I just want to know if what happened to me yesterday morning with those red lights, was that real?
Was it real?
Was it real? That's what I want to know. And they said, oh, yes, Betty, it was real. Now, I have never heard Lord Sananda and those Ashtar commanders laugh. But they were laughing at me, laughing with me.
With you, yeah, at what had happened.
And it was like, we wondered if you were going to ask.
Yeah.
You know, because that dictum that you have, you are responsible to the exact degree of your awareness, and what they mean is, tell it as it is, okay? So I said, well, I just wanted to know about those red lights I saw yesterday morning. Was that real? Oh, yes, it was very real. I said, well, there were either 9 or 12. I couldn't believe, after I've looked around here, that there's 3 over to my house, and I thought, no, I've slipped you know, here.
The first 3 was bad enough.
Yeah, the first 9 were bad enough. Now I'm seeing them
more
over my house.
And glaucoma did not explain it.
No. And so I was ready to give up the 3 over my house.
Over that,
yeah. This is not possible. So they said, oh, yes, there were 12 of them. There were 12 of them, remember that?
Yeah.
And I said, well, what is it? What was it? Or something like that. And they said, oh, well, those are portals for the Ashtar Command. And they said, we have 20,000 around the planet. Remember that?
Yeah.
We have 20,000 portals around the planet. Now, if you think that perhaps this is not a healthy thing that you're hearing, I can assure you, friends, it is. Because that Ashtar Command is made up of the greatest souls, spirit, people on this planet. And to have 20,000 portals around this planet, we are in very good hands, okay? Because I will tell you that there are many worlds. There are more worlds than you can imagine. And they are all different frequencies. It's just like here on the earth plane. There are some people who are saints, and there are people who are less than that, or actively acting like that, who seem to be totally ignorant, and many seem to be totally unkind and mean. So we know there are different levels of consciousness.
And they all live in different worlds, their own.
And we do.
Yeah, the world of a saint is very different than the world of a troubled person. Yes.
And we know that there are prisons, and there are mental hospitals, and there are all of this. And the diversity. But a lot of people don't know about the incredible spiritual world that is available. We hear all the time, as a man thinks in his heart, it is. So that's what creates your heaven and your hell. We create it ourselves by worry and by unkind thoughts. And then when we're in the hell that we have created, we forget and we blame it on other folks of the condition that we are in. But we create our own heaven and hell by our belief system. So it is actually time for us to understand that the world is not truly the way that we perceive it or the conditions that we put on it. But it would be wise if you understood, when you look at the sky, those stars, I will tell you, are live beings, okay? And this shooting star, who is Lord Sananda, under the direction of Sanat Kumara, who is called in the Bible the Lord of the world, called the Ancient of Days. Now, if you would like to call me and get the verse out of the Bible, you don't have to. I can tell you in Book of Daniel, in chapter 8, the Ancient of Days, the Lord of the world, is mentioned 3 times, okay? So this Lord of the world Sanat Kumara is very real. And when I ask them, why didn't other people see it when they were so very obvious?
To you.
They said, because we raised your vibratory level.
So you could see
so
it.
that you could see what other people
Couldn't see.
Okay? Does that make sense to you?
Betty, that is a more extreme and metaphysical example of the phenomena. Is that dress blue and black, or is it white and gold? And some people see it as blue and black, and others see it's white and gold. Now, you came and you said, no, there's 12 portals. All right? And
I was ready to give up 3.
I know. I know. Yeah, just
maybe
to come.
Maybe that over my house was an exaggeration.
Was it real?
Oh, no, they said.
It was real. And see, folks, this is what the deal is. I mean, in my own thing. I ran into Betty Tatalajski around 5-6 years ago. And I'm 70 now, all right? I've had a very interesting life, Betty. Haight-Ashbury, went to law school. I've had presidential invitations. I mean, things happen to me, all right? And I was at the point of where, things were settling down. At 65, you put the car in the garage, drain the oil, and you got to tap down. And that's when I basically ran into Betty. And I ran into her through one of the most incredible psychics on the planet. I really didn't even sort of believe. I didn't have any attitudes. I knew some people were, some people weren't. It's like tone deaf. Yeah. Some people really have an ear, and other ones can't hear anything, all right? It led me to Reverend Betty Tatalajski and the Temple of Universality. And what we are here, folks, is that in everybody's universe, we know that here in 2015, the dice is rolling, all right? The roulette wheel is spinning. That ball is bouncing around like this, and we're all looking at that table, wondering what's going to happen. Is that ball going to fall off the roulette wheel? Is the table going to collapse? Are we going to win the Powerball? I mean, who else was going on?
That's right.
All right? Now, Betty Tatalajski, in 1979, was, in the eyes of the world, she had everything. She had the marriage. She had been a former Marine. She was married to some guy, another Marine. They lived in the foothills, the house with the swimming pool, the kids, the dogs, the cats, that whatever. All right? And what happened is she was working for a public relations firm, and they told her that they wanted her to go do a little story on a spiritualist church here in Tucson. And what spiritualists meant was they heard voices from the other world. There was messages, okay?
They talked to dead folks.
They talked to dead folks in common parlance. And Betty knew the deal. You're going to go down, write a little story.
Well, I thought they were dead. I thought, the people were crazy.
Dead, yeah. And it was going to be a human interest story.
Absolutely.
Just one of those typical human interest stories. Blah, 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 blah. These people said this, and, sort of like, aren't they crazy? All right, the crazy people are among us, okay? Well, what happened is she walked into that little church, and Betty said it was real little.
Little.
Real little, okay? And she'd been going through a lot of change at the time. I mean, even though she had all this stuff, her life, she had what people thought if they only had, they would be happy.
Divine discontent.
Yeah. And yet she was really upset with her life. And the minister looked at her and gave her a message about St. Jude, the giver of miracles.
Ask St. Jude and he'll take care of it. And I thought, he does impossible things. I wonder what he can do for me. I mean, I don't even know what's wrong with me.
But you asked.
But I bought that little candle and lit it.
And her life, folks, transformed to the point, the house is gone, the kids are grown up, the marriage is gone, and she is here in front of this TV station telling you the wildest story. If somebody came and interviewed Betty Tatalajski, just like she was going to do to somebody else, and she told this story, they'd go, all right?
Yeah, this is all fiction.
This is all fiction. I want to say, folks, it's not fiction. It's real. And this is just the beginning.
God bless you.
Temple of Universality, 11 a.m., corner of Prince and Country Club in Tucson. Welcome, folks, to Steps Beyond Time.
Come to the temple. It's very simple.
And it's inside you.
Move into paradise.